hello.
Hello. I was noticing how much louder that intro music is than the speaker when I need to talk to you, be able to hear you. And so all of a sudden it was like the intro music started and it was just like a blowback kind of effect.
That was also my experience. And I just turned the volume down because I'm like, I am trying not to wake up my moody teenager who's still asleep. And I'm like, Jesus, it's so loud. I love that has it always been this loud? Maybe.
I think it always depends on like what our speaker setting is at so that we can hear each other. It's almost like, you know, when you watch like an old movie that you're streaming and it's like you have to turn the volume way up, but then all of a sudden the ads come blaring at you and you're like, oh my God, what? Like that's what it felt like. So
we are the ads today.
We are the ads today.
Yeah, I like it.
We are. Well, here we are for another episode. It's June.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. I feel like when we cooked up this idea for this season, you know, it feels like yesterday, you know, when we were talking about, okay, in 2026, we're going to make it the promotion season. We're going to up-level our game. We're going to have a website. We're going to do a rebrand. We're going to try to take really hilarious photos, you know, wearing something matchy and try to make it look okay.
We tried.
So here we are
6
months in.
Mm-hmm.
And what's been your favorite part of this season so far?
That's such a good question. I think I'm enjoying watching how your brain works and watching you like kind of like go through, like obviously I know it's scary in there. But like just watching how you're like doing the exercises and following like the process, because I feel like you're not being rigid about it. You're being like very kind of like flexible, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of fun because like as an author, right? You know, actually seeing someone working through the things that you think make sense. We don't always know that what we think makes sense actually does make sense when we put it on the page. So I am enjoying that. And obviously just your company in general, but we can talk about nothing like rats, like we were talking about prior to hitting record.
Yeah, we were talking about rodents, everybody. Yeah. We'll keep that to ourselves though. We won't bore you with that part.
That might scare away the audience.
Yeah.
How about you?
So I definitely like thinking about my book, like intentionally thinking about my book through this season. It's forcing me to do the work that I should have been doing all along. But as we've talked about through different episodes, it's very easy to get caught up in your business or your life or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden kind of paying attention to this beautiful asset that you have sits over here and kind of collects dust, or you kind of think about it and you throw something out there and it's not very cohesive. So I've enjoyed the like built-in accountability of this season, kind of making me really think about how my books work within my ecosystem. But from like a, you know, behind the scenes logistic admin kind of perspective, I love the like cohesion of this season.
Yes.
You know, we've got the website, we have the download. We recently went ahead and put, you know, the episodes over onto Spotify as a podcast.
It's a huge announcement.
Your Substack. You know, I added things about Unscripted over to my LinkedIn profile. I just feel like there's this kind of really nice kind of, we're elevating this beautiful resource that we've created for authors that's for free, you know, at this point. And we're kind of just enjoying the journey of figuring out where this goes, how to get it in front of the right people. I found myself talking about it a lot this year in comparison to the prior years, because so many people talk to me about how do I market? How do I promote? You know, and that's not necessarily my expertise, but because I've been in this world long enough and I have books of my own, you know, it's like, oh, well, have you checked out Unscripted with Ali and Jenn? I mean, I literally just had a conversation yesterday morning with an author through an organization that I'm a part of. And she said, well, how do you market? How do you promote your book? Like what kinds of things do you do? And that's the part that I'm struggling with. I know that I need to do this when my book comes out, but I'm not really sure where to start. And I was like, well, have you heard of Unscripted with Ali and Jenn?
Look what we have.
And so, so I'm really digging that aspect.
Yeah, I feel like we've been up leveling because this is our third year of doing this. And I also think like there's a number of benefits, because obviously we're using this as like a real-time case study, which I think makes it easier for someone who's in the position of not knowing how to market their book. I think that makes it like, oh, okay, we're watching these two stumble through it, which I think is helpful. And then I also feel like it's showing authors what's possible with their own work. Because I think we're showing, and again, like we say this every month, but like we're unscripted for a reason.
Mhm.
And I think we're showing like what messy can look like how we're kind of like finding our way through finding a tool and a resource that really works for both of our audiences, because authors have to figure that out on their own too. Like what's your communication vehicle going to be when you're working with your clients or
Right.
people who want to buy your book? Like what are you going to do? Like for us, we had 2 seasons that were very unscripted, and and we say unscripted, but we do have a general sense of what we want to talk about. We're not completely going rogue, because that would probably be scary. That might be a fun exercise, like doing one where we just show up and see what happens.
Just show up and we see what happens. Yeah. I like that.
But I think it's good because I think we're showing authors what's possible. And I think that's really important, because I think authors get really frozen and stuck in the fear of not knowing what to do next, which we've spent the last couple of months talking about. So,
Yeah. So for those of you who are joining us, we would love to know that you're here. Drop something in the comments. If you're joining us from like a replay after we've done recording, we still want to know that you caught the replay. But the benefit of being here live is getting to ask your questions in real time.
Yes.
So we love that. We love to be able to offer up very specific, personalized feedback and advice to those who have a very specific question, right? Because we can give a lot of general advice, but truthfully, there's a lot of kind of nuance and individualization of a lot of this stuff. So it's nice to be chatting with real authors.
Yeah.
But apart from that, let's just give the people a brief intro in case they didn't catch it in the show notes or show description. I'm Allie. I run the Right Place, Right Time. I'm a developmental editor, a memoir coach, a speaker and workshop facilitator. And largely what I'm about is giving people permission to be brave and tell the story that's hard to tell. So all of the work that I do, whether it's reviewing a manuscript or helping somebody draft a manuscript, or even showing up to help people with creative writing or shorter aspects of writing through workshop facilitation and speaking, the underlying goal is really to encourage you and empower you to tell your story. So that's a little bit about me as one of your hosts. And Jen, why don't you introduce yourself for the lovely people?
Yeah, love this. Also love that it took us 7 minutes to get to an introduction, because that's how we roll.
Hooking them with our dynamic personalities.
I know that's the draw here, really. So I am the founder of Publisher Purpose. We're a hybrid publishing company. And so our focus is taking the work that folks like Allie do and putting it into book form, and focusing on the marketing and the distribution and the strategy and kind of getting it out the door. And I'm also the founder of the Institute for Author Growth and Impact, which is still kind of like in its early stages. Yeah, it's like it really just kind of launched it in February, and it's only June. So it's, it's there, and it has 3 different schools. So no matter where you are in the writing journey, there's the School of Writing and Author Readiness, there's a School of Publishing and Production, and the School of Marketing and Influence. So kind of no matter where someone is in their journey, they can kind of pop in and get the right resources that they need to get this done, because it's not always easy to find resources, which is why, or one of the reasons why you and I started the show to begin with, because there's just so much confusion in the market broadly, no matter what aspect of the publishing journey someone might be on, or what type of publishing or what type of book. None of that. It's confusing. So, that my school, the intention behind it and the Institute is to really help kind of centralize a lot of that information as well, and provide great referrals and resources like yourself to the people who need it.
Yeah. So the other thing that both of us failed to mention, and this is why it's so hilarious because it's promotion season, is we're both authors.
Oh, yeah.
There's that. So Jen and I both have written award-winning books, and the one that we are featuring this year and working through is the very gorgeous and new Promote Your Purpose. So if you've been tuning into Unscripted this season, or you're just tuning in for the first time, we encourage you to go to unscriptedforauthors.com. You can learn all about this season. You can learn about Jen's book. You can download a free workbook that Jen has put together for this year's season, and you'll get a ton of value out of that. What else is there to say about unscriptedforauthors.com before we dive into today's topic?
I think you said it has all of the past. So if you're tuning in now in June, we're on chapter 6. It just happens to work out perfectly that there's 12 chapters in 12 months. But if you're like, oh, they're referencing something from a past episode, we have it all embedded right on the site, so you didn't have to leave. This was a huge effort for us to have a website. So it took us 2 years going into the 3rd season. And now we have one. So it's a good resource for a lot of things.
And I just remembered, I went ahead and I went and added a watch section to my main website, therightplacerightTime.com, that links right over to Unscripted for Authors. Perfect. So as people are finding their way over to me at TWPRT, they can also find their way over to Unscripted for authors.com pretty easily. I'm pretty excited about that. It was the simplest of website updates out of all of the updates that need to happen.
I believe that. I really do. Yeah, it's wild. The things that we procrastinate on and postpone and all of the things. Yeah.
Yes.
It's who we are. And that's who authors are. And so like, we are you. Like we are not better than, we are equals. We just have been doing it a little bit longer and know our way around the industry more intimately. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. So I saw this was a great LinkedIn post the other day from a prior client of mine and dear friend. Ravi Rajani, shout out. And he was talking about the lessons he wants to teach his children. But one of them in there like totally stuck with me. And it was, don't compare your chapter 2 to somebody else's chapter 22. And I was like, yes. So like, we're just further down the road, but we've been on the same road. So like, this is not about comparison. It's not about judgment. It's not about feeling like you're behind. You're not. You're where you are and we're where we are. And we're here to help because we're a little bit further ahead. Like that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. And that's the approach that I think we take in terms of our teaching and educating people. So my hope is that people are feeling seen and valued and heard and not judged or shamed or any number of things. Because there's a lot of author industry folks that kind of want to make you feel like you're behind and want to make you feel bad because that's kind of a sales tactic for them. And that is obviously not how either of us roll. Yeah.
Grody. All right. So we're at chapter 6, which is called Know Your Reader, Know Your Buyer, Know Your Impact. Jen, do you want to give us a little bit of context for this since you're the woman who wrote the book on it?
Yes, I would love to. Okay. So basically this chapter, if we think about the writing process, when we're writing the book, we have to think about the who we're writing the book for. That is kind of a given. Yep. However, a lot of times what we're not thinking about is the marketing side of who we're writing for, because how we write for that target market or target reader may not be how we market to that target reader. And so this kind of helps us expand outward of, the chapter title is Know Your Reader, Know Your Buyer, Know Your Impact. Because at the end of the day, we're writing books because we want to impact people. And so the impact is going to come from that really deep clarity of knowing who this book is for and then how we're actually going to reach them. That's kind of like the distilled down version.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. Let me take a look at some of my underlines to see what I want to add.
Your underlines. They bring me joy when you hold up your things and they're all marked up and yeah.
Oh, my little blue Post-its.
Yep.
Let's see. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the person who reads your book may not be the one who buys it.
Yeah. Big.
I have had that conversation a number of different times with folks over the years. Perfect example, I'm working with a client right now. They're working on a memoir. They're trying to determine, right publishing avenue for them, distribution channels, things like that. And, there's a part of this person who wants to be able to speak to like high school students, inspire high school students. And one of the conversations we had was, okay, well, let's think about that. Is a high school student the person who's likely to pick up your book, or is the person who buys the student the person likely to pick up your book, right? Two very different strategies. If you can get in front of the high school students, right, to talk to them, great. But you're probably not selling the books in the back of a gymnasium, right? And the high school students, while they've got probably Apple Pay and Venmo and like all the things or whatever, probably still aren't quite yet in the mindset of buying books from motivational speakers, unless they're already like a heavy reader, would be my opinion. But they could be the ones to go home to their parent and say, I heard so-and-so speak, and they have a book, right? And so we've got two different audiences there, both impacted by a message, both impacted perhaps by the author, but maybe only one that's got the true buying power.
Yeah. It's a great example. It's a really good example.
So I love that kind of distinction of being really intentional and thinking about who you're reaching. And it's not to say that you don't want to reach the high school kids. You do want to reach the high school kids. It's just that your strategy is different depending on where you're at. And, so in the instance, let's just keep using this example, right? Like, okay, so maybe you're not selling the book in the back of the gymnasium, but maybe you're sending each kid home with a flyer about the book that they share with their parent when they're telling them that they would actually be interested in this book, right? But the flyer is really geared towards the parent and convincing the parent of the value of the book so that they swipe.
100%. Yep. And I was even thinking like, having a QR code that's on that piece of paper that you could even say, hey, student, scan this and text it to your parent right now, or text it to your, your caregiver, however you'd phrase it to be inclusive. Something like that, right? Because they're not going to be the one that's going to use their money to buy this, but your parent might.
Yeah. Another piece that I really relate to, and I'll try to paraphrase because there's a lot of sentences that I underlined in this one paragraph.
What are you on?
But it was about 87. It's about differentiating without competing. I think it's really, really important what you say here about market differentiation isn't about being the loudest voice or the flashiest brand. It's about being unmistakably you. And then you go on to say, in a crowded market, you don't stand out by being louder, you stand out by being clearer. And then eventually the paragraph kind of ends with, readers want to know not just what you're saying, but why it matters coming from you. Yeah, good stuff in there.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about being clearer versus louder. Let's work through some examples of what it might look like for an author to appear louder, but not necessarily clearer. And then we'll do the reverse. Can you think of examples from people you've worked with?
Well, I don't. I don't know that I would say authors that I've worked with. I have seen this though, where I always think of Gary Vaynerchuk, which I feel like he's a personality that you either love him or hate him, like wherever you land on that, fine. But like, he's got this book from forever ago that was jab, 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 right hook. And the whole idea was give, and then ask. So that way you're not just like walking into a room and being like, go buy my book. Because nobody wants to hear that. And I think the authors that are the loudest are the ones that go walking into any environment and they're just aggressively trying to sell their book. That to me is like being loud, but not clear, because it's not focused on why should you buy this book. It's like, hey, my ego did this thing and I need you to support feeding my ego. It has nothing to do with like, what's the value that Allie's going to get from reading this, or what's the value Jen's going to get, because you and I might be both interested in the same book and have very different kind of like spins on what's going to attract me versus what's going to attract you. And so I think the authors that can be more clear on that request are going to be better than the ones that are just kind of like posting on social media every 5 minutes with some kind of message that's like, go buy my book. Like, I think that, to me, I see authors make that mistake every day of the week.
The other example that this makes me think of is cold pitches. I can't tell you how many people have connected with me on LinkedIn and then sent me a direct message that automatically goes into, I just wrote a book. Here's the title. Here's the description. Here's the link to go buy. No hello. No, how are you? No, why they connected with me, except now that I know why they connected with me. They just assumed perhaps that because I'm a writerly person or in this space that like, I want all books, and I'm like, okay, so you basically walked into my room. That's the way that I would think of like a personal DM. You walked into my bedroom, like you threw open the door without an invitation and you went, bah! That's how it feels to me.
I agree.
Energy. And I'm going, oh, okay. Yeah. There was a door here. It was shut. I don't remember hearing a knock, a gentle hello. There was no chit chat. Like, why do I care? And you could have a perfectly great book, one that I might be interested in, but because of the approach, I don't even read what that book is about. I don't even click on the link. I don't give a flying, and you all can finish the rest of that sentence at that point, because you came at me a little too hot and we haven't even established a connection yet.
None.
Yeah.
You have to start at knocking at the front door. Like that's like, we gotta build a relationship here.
Myself out of my bedroom.
It's crazy. Cause like, I don't know where that advice originates from. mean, like, I don't know who is like the original dispenser of this strategy works, because if anything, you're just pissing people off.
Yeah. I'm honestly not sure if anybody has actually offered that strategy. I think it's people who don't know a better way, who are like, I'll blast as many people as I can. And because of quantity, I will capture, I will capture people.
I would be curious if someone ran those numbers to say, if anyone watching this or listening to us on our new podcast, if you actually see the data of I sent out 200 messages on LinkedIn this week and I got however many sales, because if it's coming that aggressive, I can't imagine that's doing you any favors.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to some extent, and I know that there are exceptions and there are outliers, right? Like there are some people who are selling books from, like, let's say an indie published or self-published route that are having some success with different funnels and campaigns and things like that. I haven't really engaged in a lot of that for my 2 books. My 2 books have been a lot more like relational, high touch, one-to-one conversations and connections. I think sales for both books were highest when the book first came out. I was talking about it a lot more. I was getting ready for launch, right? With my first book, it was my first book. My people around here who knew I had wanted to write a book since I was 5, rallied around me because they were just like, oh my gosh, we're so proud. We knew you when, kind of thing, right? But since then, right, like it's been showing up at fairs, showing up in conversations, showing up at conferences, like I think the other day I went to a conference for Vermont's Creative Network, and I put 2 copies of my memoir in my backpack, just in case.
I don't know.
Just in case, because I didn't know. I ended up giving one away later that day, but it wasn't at all in the way that I thought that it would happen. It was after the conference was over, and I was actually showing a young mom a house to rent. And she was telling me her story, and there were so many uncanny similarities that I was like, hey, I want you to have this. And I pulled a copy of my book out and I handed it to her. Did she pay for it? No, it was a gift because I felt like she really needed it. But I don't know if she's going to go and promote that book to 10 of her friends that will then go and buy it, right? And so, part of this kind of like how you show up, how you promote, sometimes the first step isn't the sale. Sometimes the first step is a connection. It's planting the seed to sprout new sales,
totally,
like down the road. So I don't remember where I was going with that whole story, but there was a reason that I was telling it.
I'm not sure I can trace it back either. We're talking about you not promoting your book as much, like you promoting your book more when it just came out. No, it didn't help.
Nope. But what we were talking about before that was like being loud and how you approach the initial kind of like quantity over quality, I think is what we were really like. Does it work to cast a wide net and hope that you get a certain percentage of people who click and buy without any kind of relational connection? Right. Or is it really better to be slow and steady if that's quality connections, quality sales, quality leads, right? All stemming from what we were talking about, which is being clearer, not louder.
Yeah, I think clarity shows up in every aspect of marketing and promotion. Like it shows up on your website. It shows up on like in a newsletter if you have one. It shows up in the table that you have if you're doing some kind of event. The more clear we are, the more people can identify, oh, that book's for me, versus having this, like it doesn't fall into the loud category, but it falls into the lack of clarity category where you're just kind of like, you have a table and it's like you're grabbing anybody that will walk by and say this book is for you, when the reality is it's not for everybody. No book is really for everybody.
That's right. So let's see what else. Not for everyone. Actually, before we go into not for everyone, because I feel like that's a really good segue into how to then decide who your person is. I want to just take a quick moment to talk about this one line on 88, which I think is probably one of the best lines of this chapter. Your clearest audience may emerge not from data, but from how real people respond. Right? Yeah. So tell us a little bit when in this moment, when you're saying may not emerge from data, what kind of data would you be talking about there versus the response of real people?
I think sometimes we're going based on general information. So we might say, okay, so you and I have both written memoirs. We've both written nonfiction books. Let's just say for memoirs, you and I are both pulling data points of how we may define success for our book. And we're pulling some statistic that is put out by some memoir association where it's, I can't even think of an example of what it would look like, but it's basically saying that 10% of this population of people read memoirs in this particular category or genre.
Yeah.
Both of our books technically fall, like we each have a chapter that technically falls into what that looks like. That would be you or I making important decisions based on that data point, that who knows what the sample size of that data came from, what type of authors they were, what the goals of those authors were, how many books they sold, like all of this information. Like we always have to ask the source in terms of like, where is the data coming from? It's fine to have data, but like we need to drill into the data a little bit more, because now we're making informed decisions based on that, versus putting it out there and having real humans that are connected to us, that are part of our network, they're reading the book, telling us what they're seeing, what they're feeling, what they're experiencing, that might be in complete contrast or complete opposite direction of the data that we feel like our book should be doing, or the people it should be reaching. I feel like that might be a murky example, but that's what kind of popped in my mind. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Actually, it makes me think of, so there was an email that circulated yesterday, Gotham Writers, I think, was talking about the state of memoir, actually, in traditional publishing. Did you get that newsletter yesterday?
Did not see it, no.
Okay.
I probably have it.
So this whole article about like the state of traditional publishing kind of turning away memoirs, or not really being interested in not being able to sell them unless they're like a celebrity with like a huge platform, right? So what does that mean for people who want to write memoir? The article was honest, but it was also a little doom and gloom, right? And so I'm thinking, okay, yikes. You know, if people read this, right, do they all of a sudden start making decisions based on what this one aspect of the marketplace is saying versus looking for the opportunities, looking for the gaps, thinking about this differently? And so of course I automatically was like, how can I use this article and this information to talk to my audience, right, who I'm trying to call in, about why it's still important to go ahead and pursue memoir, and how you go ahead and you do that regardless of what the traditional publishers are saying, right? Because I know that there's other avenues. But if we were to just go ahead, I think one of the things in the article that made me cringe was like, so don't give up on writing a memoir, just make it more prescriptive. Like turn your life story into something that can be more like actionable and life lessons. And I'm like, so change how you tell your story so that you can gain the attention of the top 5 and maybe make it more saleable. But then like you're watering down your life story and your life experience so that you can have like those 5 quick tips at the end of every chapter. Like that's like ruining the genre that I think is still important in the conversation about humanity, whether the traditional 5 want to purchase it or not, right? And so I'm looking at it at that lens, but I'm also looking at it going, how many people might read that and then feel discouraged? Might automatically start trying to write a different type of book. You know, so I think this is kind of what we're talking about when it's like, all right, there can be data, but without a filter for that data, without a context for that data, you might be running your strategy or your vision based off of like a lack of input, you know, not having everything that you need.
And I think following what traditional does is it doesn't make sense for the vast majority of authors, whether you hybrid, indie, self, anything that is not traditional. Like they're not really even comparable, because all they're looking for is what is going to bring them bottom line profit to their business. And that's why they are attracted to celebrity authors, because celebrities have followings and people will buy the book that they've written, regardless of what type of book it's written. So it is sad, because, there's so many people who have really good stories, but unless they're being elevated in some meaningful way, it's hard to we're all competing with the same, the same attention. And the big publishers, when they put the resources behind the author, because I think that's and I have a story about PRH. I think they put money behind certain authors, but not all of them. And so I think sometimes, someone will water down their message. They'll make it more prescriptive. They'll do all the things. And then they still don't get the marketing support that they thought we're going to get. And they devalued their own work, and they didn't tell the story that they wanted to tell. And I think that that's, problematic in a lot of ways. A couple of years ago, God, it might be more than a couple of years. It was a while ago. I took a program at Yale that was for publishing professionals, and PRH did this whole case study, and they did it for Tara Westover's book, Educated. So I don't know if you read that book.
I didn't read that one, but I've heard of that one. Yeah.
I think it's a good book, but they basically talked about how, and I don't know if they still do this because probably it might've been in like 2018. It was a while ago. They have a make book, or had a make book, where they basically pull one book out of an author out of complete obscurity, and they put like $250,000 worth of marketing budget behind that one author just to see what they can make happen. And Educated was literally on every list, everywhere. Everybody knew who Tara Westover was, but they pulled her out of complete obscurity, because they do it for one or two authors a year. I think they did it like one every 6 months. They pulled out an author. It's not to say that that's where all the marketing budget is going, because it's not. They still have like their, of the top 1%, 5% that can get access to a traditional deal, maybe they're giving the budget to 0.5% of that 5%. And so, it's just one of those things that, if we go based on what this corporation wants us to do, it's not going to be in alignment with what our heart is telling us we want to do.
Yeah. Separate success story. So I have a client who landed her big name hybrid publisher, and I don't know how many details I can give, so I'm not going to name them. But is getting the book is getting distributed through one of the top 5, even though the publisher is not considered traditional. And she shared with me recently that they have to do a second print run because the first print run sold out through pre-sale.
It's amazing.
Memoir. And she has no audience in comparison to like, the size that they're talking about. So I don't know what the size of the print run was. So I don't have that data. I don't have that input. Right. But it did well enough that like they went through the original stock in pre-order, like, and it's a beautiful book. Like I know about the writing. It's and she's a brilliant and beautiful writer. The story is just captivating and interesting.
So good.
And I mean, when she sent me that email, I had to double check that I was understanding correctly.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, does this mean? And so was it traditional? No. But what it proves, right, is that that's not the only path. There's still success to be found in other places. Memoir, in this particular nonfiction realm, right? Memoir can still impact people. It can still be something that people want, right? So we put that against the context of this other newsletter that was talking about like the fall of memoir or whatever. And it's a perfect example of like, it's all about the angle in which you're reading the information. It's about the context. It's about, so folks, you need the whole context before you go making decisions and strategizing and things like that, right?
It's about who your audience is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So data is good, but just remember that all data comes from somewhere. Make sure you have the full context of that data before
follow the source.
Right. But the second part of this, right, is like having an audience that emerges not just from data, but from how people respond to it, right? So once that book starts to land and you're starting to hear people's, reactions and the way that it's impacted them, right? That tells you a lot more, I think,
It does.
Than any kind of thought that you might have had when you originally got started. Because until the book is actually out there and in the hands of people, you won't really know if who you imagined is who ends up kind of being the most open and receptive to what you've written. You know, I think for me, my original idea of who I was writing to for Dear Universe, I get it now, more or less panned out. You know, women that were at least either rearing children of a younger age or already had, were probably struggling with something in their adult life, a regret or a questioning or searching for deeper meaning. But I was surprised that there was also kind of an older audience that really attached themselves to this work. And now looking back, that doesn't surprise me, right? Because one of the questions that Dear Universe is really asking people to explore is like, was there something that I was passionate about that I didn't go after because of any number of reasons? And is it too late, or do I still have time to kind of pursue that thing and go after that thing that I loved or that I felt called to at one time? And so I guess in hindsight, like looking at the older women that had read it at the time when it first came out, like, yeah, because they're in that age bracket where they would be thinking back on their life and reflecting and trying to figure out what they want to do with the rest of their time on this earth. But having written it at 32, right? My window of who I thought it was going to reach was X. You know? And now it's been 6 years. And I was recently invited to talk at a Girl Scouts Career Fest recently. I was a part of a panel. I had a table. I brought copies of Dear Universe because all of a sudden it occurred to me that that young women, kind of like, you know, getting ready to graduate high school, perhaps, would be old enough and mature enough to be thinking about what they want to do with the rest of their lives. And so now Dear Universe could be seen more as a precautionary tale rather than like older looking back and asking you questions while you still have time remaining. No, but I wouldn't have had that perspective back when I was first developing Dear Universe.
And because you're looking at the conversation that's happening, you're looking at those new data points that are much more specific to what you're, you know, what you've written. And I think sometimes what happens is that we have this vision of like our target reader is this particular person. And if someone is outside of that very particular lane that we want to put them in, we kind of like shrug it off as an outlier. And then all of a sudden the outliers far outnumber that particular lane that we thought we were writing for. And unless you're like slowing down to like really look at those differences and see that, we can be marketing completely in the wrong direction or spending more money on marketing because we're marketing to the wrong person, right? So it's all about like efficiency and just kind of not set it and forget it. I think that's a whole big thing on the just marketing side too, is that we come up with a strategy. A lot of times people pay a lot of money for a big fancy strategy that's 80 pages and then just sits in a Google Drive and then you never look at it again. Like it's something that needs to be looked at and reviewed on a regular basis so you can make different and more informed decisions.
Yeah, totally. Okay, do we want to work through some workbook?
I think we should look at it a little bit at the very least. And if for those who are watching, it's available on the website for free to download. The PDF of the workbook. By all means, go grab it.
All right. So
and maybe it's not all of it.
Yeah, we're already at 10:45, so we won't go through. Jenn, why don't you look at some of the workbook questions for this chapter and like pick one or two that you think would offer the most to our audience, and then we'll work through those ones.
Yeah, I think what okay. So when we think about target readers, a lot of times we're thinking about the demographics of them. Like it's women in their 40s that live in the suburbs that believe this certain thing. But what this is also asking us to think about is what problem are they facing? What transformation are you and your book offering? Who benefits from reading it? Who's likely to buy it? But where I want to kind of focus some energy, because I think you've actually addressed a lot of this in regards to Dear Universe, but the last one here of what makes your book different from others in your space and what's your unique edge. I think to me, that's the place, especially given everything that you were just saying about that memoir article, right? Because now it's more important that we're differentiating our experience in our memoir than somebody else. So how do we kind of get to the bottom of that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you want me just to go right for that question?
Yeah, because I'm curious, you know, what, and I know that you've been doing this for both of your books, so I'm curious. I know we've been really kind of focused on Dear Universe today, so if we want to stick with that, sounds good.
Okay, well, why don't we do just that one question for Dear Universe, and then we can work through the other questions for Do Not Write a Book Until You Read this one. So I'll hold up Dear Universe because I realize we've been talking about that one the most today, just by the nature of where the conversation went. So this is Dear Universe, I Get It Now, Letters on the Art and Journey of Being Brave and Being Me. It's won 2 awards, yay! And it's 6 years old in November, which is really hard to fathom. So we've already talked a little bit about kind of who, right? The various iterations of who. So what makes the book different? So I came up with, rather than positioning the author as someone who has everything figured out, the book invites readers into the messy and uncertain middle of becoming. Blends memoir, reflection, intuition, personal growth, and storytelling, but without pretending that it's a perfect roadmap. And its unique edge is that it feels like a conversation with a trusted friend who is willing to tell the whole truth.
Nice. What I noticed that you did not do is that you did not pull out themes. You did not say this is for someone who is struggling with this particular thing or had this particular experience that did this, that did this. And I think that that is a benefit because you're pulling together the bigger picture in the through line rather than just kind of like one narrow lane of interest that someone might have with one of your stories.
I mean, I did, and so like in the benefits part, I did come up with like the women who would benefit the most might be those transition, like with life transitions, going through divorce, motherhood, grief, reinvention, personal growth, identity shifts. Those all feel like themes. And they're the women who would already enjoy something a little bit more reflective and emotionally honest, but rooted in lived experience. The likely to buy the book and why, like I talked about, like the likely buyers might be people who are women in transition, book club members, memoir readers, friends purchasing gifts for someone going through a difficult season, people who might hear me speak and would want to grab my book in the back of the room, right? And people already connected to like personal development because the book is kind of, it airs a little bit more on that side. But I think when it comes to what makes it different, like, I don't know that themes is ever going to be the right answer to that question. And the reason that I would say that, especially when it comes to memoir, that particular genre, is because lots of memoirs can have very similar universal elements or universal themes that make it resonant with the reader, right? But that's not probably what's going to make it different and stand out, because there's lots of books, there's lots of memoirs that are ultimately probably about personal growth, reinvention, following your purpose, right? So what makes it different? It's got to stand out on its own, and it can't be thematic, I think.
Yeah. Yes. And that's why the 6 questions in total together are really important, because each of them is asking you to look at your book from a different angle and a different lens. So then when you are thinking about your marketing and thinking about how you're going to reach out to any of these folks, you have all of that lens to look through. So you're not just answering, oh, it's for women of this particular age. You're bringing in like the kind of the behavioral side of why someone would be interested in this too, versus just the very kind of basic, who's your book for? You know, that's just it's very flat when we think of it from that perspective.
Right. So if we work through these now for this one, do not write a book until you read this one. So this is nonfiction, right? It's writing desk reference, basically. Your go-to guide for writing and publishing as an indie author. It's also the fraternal twin.
Sure is.
Of Jenn's Publish Your Purpose. These books came out a year apart, and they both won the same gold award.
I know. We're so on top of it.
That's how similar they are, which I love. The ideal reader for this one. This was fun to kind of do and look at because this one came out in 2024. One of the things that I've been trying to do this year, especially with this one, is just bring it back to attention a little bit more regularly. Like be a little bit more consistent and bringing it up in social media, making sure I don't forget about it, telling other
Yep.
people about it, that kind of thing. So this was a good exercise in just kind of refreshing my thinking. So ideal reader, first-time aspiring authors who feel called to write a book, but have little understanding of the publishing process.
Mm-hmm.
They could be professionals, coaches, consultants, speakers, retirees, subject matter experts, or even memoir writers.
Mm-hmm.
They know that they want to write a book, but they don't know how to create one strategically.
Yep.
Yep. What problem are they facing? So they're overwhelmed by conflicting advice. They don't know where to start, what publishing path to choose, how long the process takes, what mistakes to avoid, whether their idea is strong enough. They're at risk of wasting time, money, energy, and pursuing the wrong next step, or falling down the Google rabbit hole of information and not knowing how to filter whether or not that information is reputable, credible, accurate, up to date, those types of things.
Yep. I'm realizing as you just rattled off all of those things that the box in the workbook could be a lot bigger.
The what?
The box.
Oh, yeah. No, I ended up having to like do it on separate pieces of paper. Plus I was doing both books. And so I was like, I think I did like chicken scratch, like quick little notes. And then I kind of tried to get myself a little more cleaned up. What transformation are you offering? I think for this one, the biggest transformation is like clarity and confidence. You know, readers move from confusion about what they're doing, how to do it, to some understanding of some first initial steps and the right perspectives to have, from overwhelmed to informed action, and from unrealistic expectations, right? Because the book talks about ROI and how to think about book sales and how to think about the fact that you're going to be a marketer, right? We kind of break down some of those myths and pitfalls and misconceptions. And by doing that, it really allows the author to have more decision-making power in the process, because now they've been corrected in some of those misperceptions. And as a result of more understanding, more informed action, more strategic thinking, right, then they're confident about what they're doing in a different way than when they began.
Yeah. And what's funny is that everything you have said so far applies to the sister.
The sister. I know. They're great. They're twins.
Sister.
Who benefits from reading the book? So first-time authors, but then also experts that are building authority, entrepreneurs who are thinking about the book, retirees who finally have the time to write the book that they've always wanted to write, and people considering self-publishing. And can I just tell this story? This like completely lights me up. So I'm going to tell a story.
Love it.
In April of 2025, I went to a writing event hosted by the League of Vermont Writers. I was newly the president again. And I brought copies of Do Not Write a Book. I put them on the member table. I walk away. Woman comes up to me and she says, "Is this your book?" And I said, "Yes." And she says, "Oh my gosh, I need it. Can I buy it right now?"
Amazing.
Yes. She was like, "You had me at the title. And I've already flipped through and I can tell this is exactly what I need." And then she told me a little bit about her writing project. So she paid me, I signed the book, she took the book, she went on her merry way. Never saw her again. Flash forward to April of 2026. So just a whole year. Right? A whole year or 2 months ago, I guess. She comes up to me with the book, Post-it noted, highlighted, things are in the margins. And she was like, "You have no idea like how much this has helped me in the last year, know what I'm supposed to be doing. And I know that I still need more help. I know that even this book doesn't have all the things that I need to know." But come to find out, the reason I hadn't seen her in a year is the woman had a stroke. She had a major recovery, but she said when she came out on the other side, she said like the need to go ahead and write her book came on so strong with a vengeance, because she realized that time might be limited and she needed to get the thing done.
Wow.
And she was a retiree, somebody who had multiple decades of experience, both living with, I think, ADHD and also helping people in learning spaces with ADHD. And she wants to get it all in a book.
Wow.
So, you know, she hits the retiree, she hits the expert, she hits the person always wanting to write a book. But she wouldn't have been somebody that if I was to scan a room, that I would have necessarily like picked her out. Um,
Yep.
So the power of the book that captures the person that needs it the most, which I think you say beautifully on the very last page of chapter 6. Books do not sell themselves. They find their way to the right people when you're clear on who those people are and how to reach them. And I think that the title of the book, the look of the book, what the book promises via the description, the hardcover copy, the table of contents, it reached exactly who it was meant to reach, which was Marcia.
And it's important because I think that's also what's interesting about our books being sisters is we both have a similar like typography to the cover where we don't have our faces on it. We don't have imagery that has someone sitting at a desk writing or so many things that would exclude certain people from wanting to pick up the book. So I think that that's also like a huge kind of benefit to this because your readership can expand. Like the more conversations, and back to the data, the more conversations that you have, it's like all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, there's this whole pocket of people that I was completely not expecting to resonate with it. And there's nothing about the cover or the title that is going to repel that particular person. And I think that's why I'm a big, you can see all 3 of my books in the background. All 3 of them are very typography focused. I just personally think that's the better way to do it. However, there's always exceptions.
Yeah. So likely to buy the book. Aspiring authors, maybe writers groups, conference attendees, workshop participants, people exploring publishing options, family members encouraging someone to write their story.
I like that. And what's great about your memoir is that it's not long and overwhelming, and you can pick up each letter to yourself and just read one chapter at a time and not have to have this big, overwhelming emotional experience, even though your book has a lot of emotional experiences in it. I have read it. There's definitely some highs in there and some lows, but it allows the reader to kind of come in, absorb what they're capable of in that moment and putting it back down. So like seeing it doesn't feel like, oh my God, this book's 400 pages. It's so overwhelming because that's not who you were writing it for. Like there's plenty of memoirs that are 400 pages and work perfectly fine based on the market that they're going for.
Yep. Now this baby is solid. Hundreds of pages.
They're girthy.
Girthy. She's a big girl. But she's packed with so much value that it's like, I don't think that there's really a wasted word in there.
I agree.
What makes this book different, so do not write a book until you read this one, bridges the gap between inspiration and execution. A lot of publishing books either focus heavily on writing craft or on marketing, but this one kind of gives you a little bit of everything for the whole book journey. Helps people understand the entire publishing journey before they invest significant time, money, or emotional energy. Its unique edge is that it's practical, accessible, and grounded in real-world publishing experience rather than theory alone. Helps readers avoid mistakes that first-time authors commonly make. And I honestly think that one of the other unique edges is the voice. Even though it's co-authored between myself and Bridget McGowan Hawkins of Press 49, Bridget and I have a very kind of straightforward, kind of shoot from the hip kind of style, and that voice and tone is captured in a book. And so while a lot of writing reference or any kind of nonfiction reference book can be very, very dry, this one has a lot of kind of like sass and kind of attitude to it that makes it, I think, an enjoyable way to learn about a very complex like industry and landscape.
And I think that is reflected in your title. So again, back to the strategy that we're always kind of talking about, like your title very clearly to me says, this might be written by some authors with a little bit of sass, right? Because you wouldn't have a book title like that if you did not have a sass element to it. Or if you did, and then it wasn't sassy, I think that also might create a different disconnect.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It kind of matters.
Like advertising. We've given you a very sassy title and now we're dry as dirt inside. So Jen, where do you want to wrap up? Like, what's the last kind of note you want to leave people on when it comes to know your reader, know your buyer, know your impact?
I'm going to throw out something that might feel a little out of left field, but I was thinking of it as you were talking and how like detailed and thorough you were with your answers. Is I think sometimes just reading a chapter of a book and then trying to work through the exercises might feel overwhelming. And this might be a good opportunity to throw the questions into your AI of choice, to have it help you think deeper on what the thing is. Because sometimes like, what transformation are you going for? we have like our own limitations, but we could go to AI and say, I'm really struggling with what the transformation is that I think this book is going to have for me. Can you ask me some specific questions that are going to help me get a deeper answer? So again, feels a little out of left field, but I think it could be valuable.
Great prompt. All right. So we're coming to the top of the hour, folks. We're going to be back again next month in July. What's our date?
Oh,
do we know?
God forbid we ever have this information before we start.
I know.
The 9th, July 9th.
July 9th. Okay. And we're going to be talking about selling with purpose and service with confidence. So chapter 7 of the book, or the workbook, whichever it may be. But of course, as always, you don't need either of those resources to join us live and to tune in. And if you are catching this on the replay, we would love for you to let us know that. Or if you're catching us over on Spotify or Substack, or just comment wherever the heck you are listening, we would love to hear from you and know what you're learning, what you're taking away, how the exercises are going, how you're applying them to your own books, right? So again, if you haven't gone over to unscriptedforauthors.com, we really suggest that you do that. Jenn, what do you have coming up that you want to let the good people know about?
What do I have coming up? I just launched a quiz about what type of writer are you, to help people get unblocked to get the damn thing done.
Nice.
And it's authorgrowthandimpact.org/writing-quiz. And I am so excited about it. And I want to share it with you offline, because I was entertaining myself as I was creating it. I was like, who's going to appreciate this, Allie? So just to help people kind of the emotional and mindset side, like just to kind of be able to identify, like, okay, I'm an overthinker. Now, what could my plan look like to kind of get through this? Or I'm a perfectionist. How do I kind of move through that? So that's my excitement, the new thing that I just created.
Nice. Oh gosh, I feel like I have so many things that I could promote and I don't know which one to focus on. Okay. I have been working behind the scenes for a very long time on flagship program that's based off of the last few years of one-to-one custom work with people working on memoir. It's called the Memoir Studio. And that webpage with all the details and enrollment and application is about to go live on my website any day now. So I'm very excited about that. So you can come over to the rightplacerightTime.com, sign up for emails right now, but just come back and check periodically on that until you see the Memoir Studio hanging out at the top of the menu. Apart from that, though, I'm whipping together just to see how it goes, kind of like a 4-week author summer series that I was going to start in July. And it's going to be kind of talking about modern authorship. So we're going to do a week on what kind of author you want to be, a week on the publishing avenues, a week on AI and being an author, and a week on marketing basics, how to think about it. So it's going to be a nice tight container. We're going to meet once a week. It'll be hybrid, in person or virtual. And the goal is for you to have your own modern author roadmap by the end of the 4 weeks, to really have an intentional direction of where you want to go with a current book or a future book that you've been thinking about. So again, therightplacerightTime.com. Come over, sign up for the emails so that you know when registration for that opens, and would love to guide you for a few weeks, just helping you kind of wrap your head around where are you heading as an author in 2026.
I love all of that. I love that it's wrapped as a summer series. It's kind of like the perfect container. Love it.
Yeah. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully we'll get some people, some butts in seats.
That is the goal.
Yeah. And so all of these texts that we've been referring to, they're going to be on the suggested reading list. They're not going to be required, but I'm going to be pulling tidbits from all of them. So y'all, it's going to be a great series.
Yeah. So the right place, the right time.
Yep.
Go get it.
Sign up. Get it. Okay, we are digressing very quickly here. So we're wrapping up the show for today.
Yes. We will see you again on July 9th.
Bye, my friends.